If you want to put a guitarist out of a job, or any other companies for that matter, this is the way to do it. Welcome to a tutorial on double stops. I'm a huge fan of playing more than one string at once. I mean, why not? We've got the opportunity to do it. And actually there's a few tips and tricks which will help. Sometimes you actually do it completely unwittingly. But I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks to help you control some double stopping, introduce you to some key features for how to double stop, and also crucially when to use it in the tunes that you're playing. So hands up those of you who tuned their fiddle today without the use of a tuner. Yeah, there's a few of you there. So to be able to tune your fiddle the traditional way, you actually have to be able to do double stopping, i.e. playing two strings at once. And it's kind of more difficult than you might think, but at the same time it's actually not that difficult at all. So there's a few little things that I want to teach you and show you, a few fundamental techniques for when playing two strings at once. And once you've learnt this, you'll open a whole load of doors to be able to go down whatever double stop chord self-harmony path that you want. So it really is a nice technique to learn, and actually not too difficult. So let's take a look at it. We're going to start all the way down at the bottom. And the thing is, when we're talking about double stops, most of the work is here with the bow. So let's take a look at what's going on there. Alright, so the first thing to look at is actually the positioning of the bow on the string. So firstly, what we're going to do is actually just play some long notes on the open strings themselves. So we'll just take two on each string, starting with the D string. Nice long bows. Back down. Okay, that's a nice simple exercise purely focusing on the bow on the string and the angle that it's on. Some of you may have encountered hitting some other strings there whilst you were doing the single string. Try and do it again without hitting any other strings, and it really helps you to focus on what's going on with the bow. Because let's just take a look. When you've got the bow on the string, let's say we've got it on the D string. If we want to go over to the A string, we have to go like this. Okay, so D, A, E, A, D, G. Just have a look at what my bow hand is doing, and specifically the arm. It's going up and down. So if I put the arm up, the bow goes over to the G. Put the arm down, it rolls over to the E. So it's the angle of the bow on the string that we're looking at, and that aids us and helps us to move over the strings. If you want to go even more advanced and technically, you can actually use your little finger, your pinky, to do this as well, but we'll do that another time. Okay, let's just purely look at the bow on the string using the arm and also the elbow here. Okay, so we've done all the four strings individually. Now what we need to do is what I like to call aiming for the invisible string. So if you just imagine an invisible string between the G and the D, and another one between the D and the A, and another one between the A and the E. Okay, so we'll firstly take the invisible string between the G and the D. All right. Now, if you have really hit the sweet spot of that invisible string, i.e. an equal amount of pressure and bow on both the G and the D, then you should get a lovely even sound. Let's try it again on the D and the A string this time. So invisible string between the D and the A. Nice long stroke. Here we go. There we go. Now, this is actually trickier than you might think, because the thing is, there's a difference between when you've got your bow all the way up here at the frog or down at the tip. You have to adjust along the way, annoyingly. So if you found you were getting something like this, it's because we didn't quite have a consistent bow and you weren't micro adjusting enough. So try it again and just feel what's going on and try and get those two strings equally sounding, and you're hitting that invisible string just precisely. Okay, we'll take the up bow as well. So that in itself takes a little bit of practice. So just try some nice long bows on the invisible string. We'll try the last string, invisible string here, the A and the E together. And the up bow. Okay, and again, if you're finding that you're hearing, let's say, too much of the A string, like this, you have to make the adjustment here in the arm. Okay, so it means that you're too high or you're too low. So just make that up and down adjustment according to what sound is coming out of your violin. Let's just try the A and the E one more time. And the up bow. Hopefully with a little bit of practice, you're going to get a lovely consistent sound all the way from the frog to the tip, and you're getting an even sound from both the strings. Easier said than done, but with a little bit of practice you should be okay. Okay, so let's just recap what we've done. We've done the 4 individual strings, and we've done the 3 invisible strings. So 4 plus 3, well, that equals 7. Essentially, we've got 7 different contact points in total on the violin when thinking about angle and position of the bow. So what do I mean by that? Well, we've got 1, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4 single strings, 3 double strings. So a really nice exercise to practice all these 7 different points is to take them consecutively. Back down. So there we go, all 7 points. And essentially the only difference is the angle here using the right arm up and down. So like I said, when you're all the way over here, the arm and the hand is high, and just making micro adjustments to bring it over and over and over until you get to the E string. And you should have gone through all 7 points in that duration. Okay, again, it's just muscle memory for knowing how much or how little to do it. And we can just practice that one more time. So we'll just go up and then we'll go back down, and we're going to take 1 bow to each point, starting on the G. Here we go. And the next point. And there we go, we've gone up all through the 7 points. Okay, so the aim of this is to get the most consistent sound so that when you're playing the single strings, you're only hearing that single string throughout the bow, no clipping the other strings. And when you're playing the double strings, you're getting a very equal, consistent sound from both the strings. So you're not hearing one string more than the other, and you're getting one nice, consistent sound. We're going to try it one more time. This time we'll go from the E string and back down to the G string. Okay, so here we go, starting with the E. Next one. Next. And there we go, that's our 7-point contact exercise, if you like. It'll take a little bit of practice to become consistent here, but the more you do this, the more you'll be able to freely go from single string to double string and back to single string wherever you are. And this is the fundamental basics of the double stopping when focusing on the bow hand. I don't know if any of you have ever struggled tuning the fiddle before by using double strings. I know a lot of people, students I've taught, also have a lot of trouble tuning the violin. And it's probably because you're not hitting an even sound between the two strings. If you don't get an even sound, it almost sounds out of tune, so it becomes almost impossible to tune the violin. You get the sort of very inconsistent wah 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 sound. If you get the consistent sound, it's going to sound much more in tune. So this is definitely a great exercise to practice, this 7-point exercise. Take the individual strings, so the 4 individual strings, and make sure they're clean and without any interference from other strings. Then take the 3 invisible strings, make sure they're also consistent, and after this take the 7-point exercise. Okay, so once you're feeling comfortable with the actual bow work here and you're getting a nice consistent sound on all the strings, we're ready to bring in some finger work at the same time. So a good way to start here is just using our first finger, and a nice little exercise which I like to do, I use this as a nice warm-up exercise, is to take our first finger, we'll take it on the G string, so we've got the A down. We're going to take this note here, the A, and then the next note we're going to take the D, the open D, and then we're going to play them together. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate it again. And not only does this challenge you with your bow work to get a consistent sound, it's also challenging you to get your first finger perfectly in position, because if it's not, you can pretty clearly hear, and that's why this first finger exercise is so good for those music theory enthusiasts out there. The interval that we're playing here is a perfect 4th, and perfect intervals are really good for tuning. Okay, so it's a 4th that we're using. So if you can hear it's out of tune, just adjust that first finger. All right, we'll just try it again with that first finger. So we've got down, up, and together. Let's try that on the next string. So first finger on the D string, open A string, and together. And you could probably hear I was just micro adjusting along the way. We'll try it again. And there's our perfect 4th. and we'll just do it on the final two strings here. So first finger on the A string. And again, micro adjust as you're doing it, and we'll try it again. And there we go. So then the aim is to be able to do this immediately, so you can get that's a pretty tricky exercise. If it's too hard, that's okay, just go back to the original exercise. And maybe take all three strings in a row. So let's just try that. We'll do once on the G and the D, once on the D and the A, and once on the A and the E. Using the first finger. Here we go. Next one. And the last one. Okay. Now, if you're having troubles with this, it's not an easy exercise. There could be a couple of things going wrong. Remember to focus on your bow to make sure that you're getting a consistent, even sound there. If it's not, then it will never sound in tune. If that's okay, then it's just about adjusting the first finger so that it sounds in tune. If that fails, I would check the tuning of your violin. Moving on from here, we've done the first finger. You can also do that with the second finger if you want. That's fine. It's a little harder to hear if it's in or out of tune because we don't have that perfect interval, which is why the first finger is really, really good for this. So I have another exercise here, which basically involves a scale of double stops, and it goes like this. We're going to take a 1 octave G major scale starting on the G string, so that in itself would be like this. Okay, and now we're going to try it with the double stops. So we're going to aim for that invisible string between the G and the D. There it is. And we're simply going to play the G major scale, like we just played, but this time the bow is going to remain on that invisible string. So it sounds like this. So now we've got a couple of things to focus on. I would say if you can, focus more on what the bow is doing. So just have a look down at the bow itself and make sure that's not moving around. And the tricky bit is when you switch over your fingers from the G string to the D string, because automatically what you'll want to do with the bow is move it over. But actually the bow stays the same. So the bow is just doing this. 8 times. This time with the fingers. So now we're just starting to develop double stops with using some sort of simple melody, i.e. a scale, together with the bow remaining on that invisible string. Okay, let's go on to, we'll use the same principle, a 1 octave scale, this time between the D and the A string. So aim for that invisible string, and the scale this time is a D major scale. It's exactly the same finger positioning as the G major, just on a different string. Okay, so high second finger every time. Here we go on the D and the A string. And there we go. And the great thing about this is you can really hear if you're tuning well, particularly that last double stop. We've got the perfect octave, and that's very, very easy to hear if it's not quite in tune. So just adjust your left hand accordingly, and remember to have a consistent sound with the bow. We'll try it one more time. Let's move on to the last invisible string, so that's between the A and the E string. It's arguably the hardest one because it's a little bit tougher to get a good sound from these, but the principle is the same. Just make sure you're getting a consistent sound from your fiddle on the 2 strings. Here we go. And I had to do a fair bit of micro adjusting at the end, as you could hear. We'll do it one more time. That was a bit better that time. So this exercise is great for many things. It's fantastic for your bow hand, your contact point, making sure you're hitting 2 strings at once. It's equally good for your left hand intonation, and finally it's a very good exercise to challenge you with doing something with your left hand and at the same time keeping the bow consistent. So essentially the bow is staying on one invisible string, but the left hand is moving from one string to the other. So there's a lot of things going on here. A little bit difficult, but at the end of the day, if you take it stepwise, then you should be okay. A final word on the exercises here. We haven't introduced the 4th finger. It's not entirely necessary, but for those of you who are wanting a little bit of an extra challenge, a 4th finger double stop is always a great one. Because as you know, the 4th finger is the same note as the open string. So putting those together, you get this kind of lovely stereo effect. It's a sound that I use a lot in my playing. It's the double note. So you can also practice this using a scale as well, same as what we did before. And what I like to do is to go up to the 4th finger and then back down. So we get a nice up and then down. And if you wanted to combine that with what we did before, I would go up to the 4th finger, back down, and then take the entire scale like we did before. So it would be a little pattern which goes like this. And that's a nice little melodic exercise involving the 4th finger as well. And try that on all the strings if you're really up for a little bit of a 4th finger challenge there. There we have it. That's my tips and fundamental sort of rules on double stopping. We've got the contact points, 7 contact points, getting you that consistent sound from the bow. Then just start to introduce the 1st finger, and then from there introduce the other fingers in a scale, or using that last up to the 4th finger, down, and the scale as well. So a nice few exercises, and I would suggest that if you haven't quite nailed the initial bow consistency. Don't go on to the next step from there, because you really need that sort of skill to be able to go to the next one. But with a little bit of practice, just on the open strings, it shouldn't take you too much time at all before your arm just starts to learn that consistent sound that is necessary for the double stops. So now that we've learnt how to play the double stops and also how to use our left hand whilst playing double stops, I'd like to let you into how to use these double stops when playing your tunes. And I'd also like to teach a nice tune which I think lends itself well to double stops. That tune is called Stam Villum, and this is a Danish tune from the island of Fanø. If you've never played any Danish music before, that's okay. The tune is pretty simple. It's a nice tune to play on the fiddle, and it's got a lot of opportunity for some open string double stopping. So let's go ahead with learning the tune itself, and then we can see where we can put the double stops in this tune. So I'll just play you the A part of Stam Villum. When learning the tune, we'll just learn the tune itself. So just for now, focus on the tune, and then we'll put the double stops in afterwards. So here's the A part for Stam Villum. Okay, so that's the A part. We're in the key of D major. So we've got two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Let's go ahead with learning the A part here. I'm going to start on the first finger on the E string, an F sharp. First phrase goes like this. Okay. One more time. Okay, next phrase. Nice scale down on the D. One more time. We're going to take it from the very top. And one more time. 2, 3. And. Okay, let's push on. We're going to go. And. We're going to go like this. From the F sharp. Okay, let's put those two together. It goes like this. And. Again. Okay, let's put the whole of the A part together, starting on the F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Okie dokie. That was the first half of the A part. The second half of the A part is almost exactly the same. So we just need the ending of the A part, which, as you could hear, okay, nice scale up from D. C sharp. Try it again. Once more. Okay, so that's the ending of the A part. Let's just put the whole of the A part together now. First 4 bars together with the second 4 bars. Starting on the F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. Okay, so there we go. There's the A part. If you've missed any bits, just go back, rewind, and take another look at it. But otherwise, we're going to move on to the B part, which goes like this. Okay, so we're mainly up on the E string here. The first phrase goes like this. Okay. And. Next phrase. Okay, let's put those two together. And again. Next bit is almost like an answer to this phrase. On the E. Again. Okay, let's put those two together from the start of the B part. And. Okay, we're ready for the final bit of the B part, which goes like this. Okay, so it's basically a little scale down from the top A. That's the first bit. We're going to put a little cheeky in from the F sharp. So from the A, like this. Okay, and this note here, we're going to carry on the scale, 2 of them. Okay, so let's just put all that together from the A. And again. One more time. And luckily enough, the ending of the B part is exactly the same as the ending of the A part. Let's just try that. And there we go. So I think we're ready to try the entire B part. Starting on the E string, we'll play it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. There we go. That is the entire tune of Stam Villum. So before we go any further with the double stops and everything, let's just play the tune once through, repeated A part and repeated B part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. B part. Repeat. And there we go. That is the entire tune, which is Stam Villum. Let's have a look at implementing some double stops into this tune Stam Villum, and all these tips I'm gonna apply to this tune are also applicable to many other tunes. So it's kind of small sort of general rules of thumb which you can use for other tunes. So tip number 1 is to use a double stop at the end of a tune, particularly if you're in the key of D, G or A. And the reason for this is if your tune finishes, if you're in D for example, like we are with Stam Villum, and your tune finishes on the D, you have a free double stop with the octave below. So you get, so in Stam Villum we have, and that's just a free double stop right there. And I kind of think you might as well use it because it just adds a lovely sort of harmonic texture and a different sound to it. So let's use that one. So when we get to the end of the A part in Stam Villum, hit that double string there and cross your fingers it's in tune. Okay, twice around the A part, hitting that octave at the end. And there we go. So here we're utilizing the practice that we did before from moving from this contact point to this contact point. So that should come in handy there. And luckily for us, you can do this in the B part as well. And this is essentially applicable to all tunes ending on that third finger. So if you're in the key of G and you're finishing on this one here, the G, just give the bottom string a whack as well and you'll get a lovely end to your tune. Okay, I'm sure there's loads of tunes that you know which finish on this third finger. So just look out for that and it's a free double stop. Okay, so tip number 2, that's basically utilizing the open strings. And again, as a general rule of thumb, it's not always true, but most of the time you can hit the string below the string that you're playing on. So let's say I'm playing on the E string, like this. If you double stop the string below, then you should get a nice harmonization which fits in with your tune. So it would sound like this. So there I was consistently hitting that string below, and what it was doing was it was creating a harmonization for itself. And usually the string below, it depends on the key you're playing in, but I would say if you're playing in G major and D major, which are the most common keys, the string below will probably work in your favor here, and it will create a lovely chord which fits in with the key. Let's try that in Stam Villum. I've just demonstrated the A part, but let's go over to the B part because I actually think it works very well here in the B part. Something like this. We've got, why not take the string below it like this, and you can do it all the way through the B part here, or at least the first half. And suddenly you've got a lovely bit of self-harmonization. The challenge now is to come out of the double stops. So when we hit that point there halfway through, let's just go back to the melody. And if you remember to finish on the octave double stop on the very last note. Okay, so let's just try it from the B part with the double stops. And single string, octave, one more time. And there we go. So suddenly we're getting a lovely contrast between the double stops and actually the single notes. And funnily enough, when you come back to the single notes, it's like, wow, that sounds so clean and sweet. And then when you go back to the double stop, it really gives it some grit. So suddenly you're getting a little bit of variation in the tune. Well, actually, I would say quite a lot of variation, just by moving the bow a tiny bit that way over to the invisible string, the other contact point, which you've learned how to do. So that's my tip number 2, is to use this open string below to create a lovely chord in your playing. Tip number 3, this is kind of a more subjective one, because it kind of depends on what style you're playing in and what your personal preference is. But it's to be able to pick certain notes or phrases in tunes to double stop. So rather than just double stopping all the time, I really like to pick and choose points in the tune where you do a bit of double stopping. And it's almost like you're just doing a little bit of self accompaniment along the way. So you get a really nice variation. So let's give an example here in Stam Villum. We can use the B part again, do something like this. So you're kind of choosing some points to do the double stop, going in and out. And this is where the 7-point contact exercise really comes in handy, because you're just essentially shifting between the invisible string and then the single string, and then back and forth. This is probably the toughest of the 3 tips. So if you're struggling with the other 2, just focus on those for now. But if you're feeling confident, try this out. Pick some points in the tune which you're going to double stop. It could be one note. Often it works on longer notes where you've got a bit of time. It could be a few notes together. But going in and out of this double stop and single note will really help you get some variation in your tunes. So let's just try that in the B part. You could, for example, just hit the first beat of every bar. So let's just try that. Okay, we'll try it again. Okay, so there we go, a little bit of variation there, and you can essentially go through the entire tune doing this, just picking your points where you want to do an open string double stop, and it's guaranteed to add some lovely harmonization and variation in the tune. So I'm just going to play you once through picking some points for some open string double stopping, so you can hear and maybe get some inspiration for how it works. So here we go. 3, 4. was just an example of choosing any point. It doesn't really matter in the tune. You can choose any point and it really enhances that note. And essentially all I'm doing is just switching from the single string over to the invisible string contact point, using the open string below. So those are my top 3 tips. Remember, tip 1, using the free octave 3rd finger double stop at the end of each tune. Tip number 2, using the open string below the melody string that you're playing on. And tip number 3, being able to go in and out of the double stops. So I really hope this has been of some help to you, as long as you take it right back to the fundamentals. So the practice on the single string, and then the practice on the invisible strings, and then the 7 contact point practice. As long as you've got this under your belt, then you'll be able to go from there. That opens up to single finger double stops with the open strings. You can basically take this as far as you want, but I mean, I would very much recommend taking it all the way back from the start and really just focusing on what the bow is doing, making sure you're getting a consistent sound, and then starting to introduce the fingers from there. Once you have that, just explore all the tunes that you know already. Try and put some double stops in those tunes. There'll be loads of opportunity for it, guaranteed. Just try things out, because once you've learned the skill to be able to do it, you know, the world is your oyster. So really try, just play around with it. Good luck with all this. I really hope you've got something out of this tutorial and that you'll start exploring double stops from now on. Thanks for now. All the best. I mean, there's just no need for a guitarist anymore.